Let's start again. Okay. Thank you, Rich Straighten, Selectman 7 Cottage Hill, Bethel, Connecticut. I took for granted that the fire truck was going to be on tonight's agenda, but I see it's not. So I had prepared a letter. Those are my own comments from between the Fire Commission and Board of Selectmen. It doesn't relate to any comments or conversations with those people. As you can see, I was a resident of the town of Bethel all my life. I believe that this truck is an essential piece of equipment for the safety of our residents and the commercial real estate in the Stony Hill area. And also it will help downtown. I mean, the two departments work together all the time. So I think it's an essential piece of equipment, and hope you consider the purchase of it.
Thank you, Rich. Rich, you have a letter. Rather than reading it into the record, we'll just submit it. Is that sufficient?
That's fine.
Okay, thank you. Any other?
If you could forward, I'd appreciate if you could forward it to the members, email it to the members that aren't here this evening.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Dion's in the other room, but I believe she does that
Yes,
as an.
I will. Yep. And then we also have Tom Gallagher that would like to speak.
Tom, you're up.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Tom Galliford, 1B Fawn Road, past chief of Stony Hill Fire Department. Again, this is about the proposal for the demo Quint fire apparatus. And just listening with the Fire Commission meeting, I know some of the Board of Finance members were listening in on it as well. And I just want to reiterate, this is a townwide asset. I've always, in my 33 years in the Stony Hill Fire Department, I've always, not just thought of Stony Hill, but the town itself, and acting as the fire marshal and emergency manager, I've always looked after the whole town and think of the town as a whole when the fire departments are, even though we have two separate ones. And this will be a townwide asset. Yes, Stony Hill is growing. There's going to be a lot of commercial growth. There's been some, there's going to be more. And it's difficult to say, okay, we only use an aerial apparatus once or twice in Stony Hill, but we don't know when the next fire is going to be. We don't know when the next incident is going to be. So we always have to plan ahead for that. And as Rick Straighten mentioned, it was proposed many years ago. I've gone back to at least 2012 when Kenny Partecipi was chief, and there was a proposal for a ladder truck device for Stony Hill for the future development. And in 2011, if you look through your old capital plans, I know a lot of you probably weren't on the Board of Finance in 2011, but the Bethel Fire Department did propose a Quint fire apparatus to replace Engine 6, along with an addition to put on their firehouse to house it. So that to me shows that there is a need, not just in Stony Hill, but town-wide for this piece of apparatus. And I know it came on quick, but it's a great opportunity. I think that's why there's so much enthusiasm in this, because it's a great opportunity to purchase apparatus at a discount. And as Chief Baker said, it will fit the needs of Stony Hill and Bethel and the entire town as far as the type of apparatus. It's the same apparatus we've been specking and looking at for 5 or 6 years. So I just take that into consideration. Thank you.
I got the.
Okay. And then do you have this?
Dion, whether they have other members with hands up?
Okay. And then I just texted you this fire apparatus. I mean, I made one copy. It's $125. No.
Dion, I'm sorry, do we have any other? No? Okay. Next agenda item is consideration of approval of the regular meeting minutes from August 10th, 2021. Seeing that the minutes were distributed in advance, entertain a motion to accept as submitted.
Make a motion to accept this.
I'll second it for discussion. Just reading it, I thought I made the motion about meeting in person. It doesn't matter, but I just thought I did. And then I think it's got Robert and then Baleen here. Is that how you remember it? You don't remember?
No, I didn't
I
focus
can
on
go back and watch the video. I try to watch the video as I do my minutes, just so that I'm getting it correct. But if I made a mistake, I can fix it.
I will make an amendment. Oh, I'm sorry, Brian, could you make an amended motion to adjust the minutes to show that it was Nick Ellis who motioned?
I make that amended motion.
Discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the next agenda item is discussion of the comptroller recommendation process, and really this is just a discussion of the process. It is just now that I can talk about this without tearing up and becoming tremendously sad that Bob Kozlowski is retiring at the end of the month.
No.
Very, very emotional.
Look, he's gonna cry.
Okay.
Friday.
The charter,
Are you calling in sick or not?
No,
No.
Friday's the last day.
Friday, like in, what day is today? Today's
It's
Tuesday.
It's Tuesday night.
Can we meet on Tuesday night?
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, I want this court to know I still have not given him permission.
Excellent. All right, well, Bob is retiring. So the charter requires that this board make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen as to the next comptroller. The Board of Selectmen takes that recommendation and then factors it into its consideration. Given that we need to kind of go through the practical aspects of interviewing people and all the other kind of Robert's rules, et cetera, I would like to suggest that we form a subcommittee of a representative from each party on this board, and that subcommittee will work with the HR team and Phyllis to interview candidates for the role. Before I make that motion, any discussion?
I just think it's a good plan, so I appreciate the consideration.
Thank you. Cynthia, Dee, or Robert, any discussion?
I think it's a great idea too.
Okay,
I agree.
so I will make a motion that we form a subcommittee, one representative of each party that is on this board, and that the subcommittee will do the initial interviewing for purposes of making a recommendation to the entire Board of Finance. In turn, the Board of Finance will make its recommendation to the Board of Selectmen.
I would second that.
Discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next, consideration of capital non-recurring items. No, I thought I saw Lieutenant. Yes,
Chief's there also.
and Chief, yep, okay. The first capital non-recurring item is the police department body cameras. I don't know, Matt, you want to kick it off and then turn it over to?
Yes,
Chief?
yes. As I'm sure everybody knows, I can't remember the bill number, but the police accountability bill that was passed last fall in special session by the Connecticut legislature made a number of changes to the business of law enforcement. One of the ones that is impacting us immediately is the requirement that all police agencies have body cameras, equip all their officers, their patrol officers with body cameras. Bethel was ahead of the curve many years ago by already equipping our patrol cars with cameras. And we do have an archiving system, although it will need a serious upgrade to handle the volume of data that is going to be collected. The law is quite specific in terms of how long that data must be retained. It's an expensive process, and there's no state grants available to help us out. It also has to be in place and operating by July 1 coming up, 2022. And even though that seems like it's a long way away, it isn't, because every police agency in Connecticut is going to be, jamming through and trying to do the same thing. So the chief brought this to the Board of Selectmen. We passed this and are requesting 107. And by the way, because we have part of this in place already with the patrol cars and have some of the infrastructure in place, this is saving us some money. I can't remember offhand exactly what it is, but we're in actually better shape to get this done and meet the deadline. So we have requested $178,921 for the equipment, and then an additional $9,175 for the IT support, for the archiving to go with it. That brings the cost to a total of $188,696 to be applied from current and previous capital non-recurring funds. And to the best of our knowledge, this does not apply to the ARPA funds, to the American Rescue Plan Act, but it was anticipated in our budget this year anyway as part of capital non-recurring. So I'll stop here and I'll turn it over to the chief or Lieutenant Libertini if they have any other comments they'd like to make.
Yeah, Matt, you touched on everything pretty well. At the end, we can apply for a grant, but it has to be done by the end of this year. So even though we have the July 1st deadline of next year to be eligible for possible grant, which unfortunately Bethel might be at the bottom of the list of that, but at least be able to apply to up to, I think 30% is the best we could possibly do. But it has to be, we have to have everything done up and running to be able to put in for the grant. And then you touched on it. We, in 2015, Lieutenant Libertini and I were tasked with looking into body cameras or car cameras or both. At the time, we didn't feel Bethel needed body cameras. So we went with car cameras. The good news is we made a decision back then to go with a platform that could transition to adding body cameras to it. So we have a lot of the infrastructure in place already that we need. So I'm not sure if Brian's on here or not. I can't see him, but I know Ridgefield, for example, had to start everything from the bottom up, and I think they were over $300,000 for everything. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, if you're there. So we have most of the car cameras already in place. We do have to get a few additional ones to get up in compliance with the new law. However, we're, at 180 something thousand instead of $300,000 right now, because we started doing this little by little in the operating budget over the last 5 years. And again, it's something we have to do. I think it's a good thing. Do I think it's something that Bethel absolutely needs? Well, that could be up for debate, but the state has put the burden on us that we have to do. We don't have a choice. So here we are looking to get this up and running so we could get it done by the end of the year and be eligible for any possible grants and also be in under the deadline. And the one thing I'll add, and again, Lieutenant Libertini could answer a lot more of the technical questions than I can, but there's two main players in body cameras and car cameras right now. One is WatchGuard, which is just got bought by Motorola, and that's the one that we currently are using and want to continue to use and add the body cameras too. And the other one is Axon. And just to give you an idea, it's like going out and buying a pickup truck. If your decision's between a Ford and Chevy, there might be a $500 difference at the end of the day, but they're typically about the same price with the same options. We personally like the Axon, the WatchGuard system a little bit better than the Axon. But that preference you'll go from department to department and hear different pluses and minuses, and we did a lot of research on that. So I don't know if there's any questions.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve $188,096 for the body cams for the Bethel Police Department.
Can I ask a question first?
There was a motion on the floor.
Was it? Okay. Was it second?
Second. I second that.
Now, if you have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Chief, Lieutenant, I was just trying to follow through on the numbers. I see the 174,421 for the equipment. I see the 9,175 for the IT support in the material that we have. I don't see where the $4,500 kind of second IT number is coming from. Did I miss it in the material?
Yes, I believe. Hang on one second. Let me turn off my let me unmute myself.
Well, Lieutenant, while you're looking that up, I added that there was something that had been left out of the quote. So during the Board of Selectmen meeting, the chief and the lieutenant pointed that out. So I added that 4,500.
Piece of hardware or something?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know exactly what it was.
That's it.
So
Yeah.
what I give you was the final.
But it's needed for the system.
Correct, but it's not in here.
No, it is. That's why I got the 188.
No.
Well, it's not in the package, you mean?
Yeah, it's not in, it's not
So-
on paper. But if you look at the bottom of the fourth page, there's the 9,175. That's the IT support. Go through all the subtotals on the rest of the page, and that equals the 174,421. Add those two numbers, it's the 183,596. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't see that 4,500 in what we have in front of us.
Okay, I have it in, let me explain it to you. I have it in front of me. It is a upload device, because we are not going to be storing any data on site. We are going to be storing it in the cloud. When we initially had gone with the car cameras, a decision was made to store all of our data locally. I don't know how many terabytes of storage we have currently. I think we're in the teens for car cameras. Obviously, with body cameras, it's going to exponentially be larger. We decided to move to the cloud because it would be easier to manage and ultimately cheaper. So we need a device to do that. And that device is $4,500, and it is called an ELC, Evidence Library Upload Appliance. So that will integrate with one of our servers, and that is how we will upload. So data from the car, from the body cameras, will be uploaded and staged here, and then it will be uploaded to the cloud for permanent storage, if that makes sense. And this is the medium to do that. It was not included on that original WatchGuard quote, because at the time when we got the quote, we were still undecided as to whether we were going to store locally or on the cloud. Storing locally would have added about 30 grand to the cost of that $9,000 that you saw from Network Synergy. And while we're talking about money there, you see the WatchGuard quote, and it says total price $149,241. You can do 5 payments of $27,588 for the 5 years of this, or you can pay that lump sum right up front. I can't speak for WatchGuard, but I think if the town wanted to pay that lump sum instead of doing payments, we could probably do better on the price. So that 180,000 that was approved, or 88,000 that was approved, that is a worst case scenario, and I don't think we're going to be near there, to be honest with you.
Lieutenant, that makes perfect sense. Matt, do you have the invoice, or can you forward us the invoice, Lieutenant, and we'll just put it in for the record? I think
Yeah,
between now and then, we'll just assume we have it.
we can do that. And I did look up the minutes. It was from the August 17th meeting. So we did it 2 motions. So the 4,500 is separate, but yes.
Okay.
Apologize that it's not in there, but we'll get it to you.
So basically, it was just cloud storage. It really wasn't hardware.
Right.
No,
No,
it is hardware. It is hardware.
Piece of hardware to upload it.
It is. So really what the issue was initially is that if we were going to store locally, we would have need to make another server, which would have driven the cost up a lot. And then also we need storage. So to buy storage and to calculate what our needs would be based on 40 officers using body cameras, it was quite large. And then to back that data up, because we would need to do that as well, that creates another expense. However, the server that we currently have in place right now that we're using for the car cameras, we believe from the specs that are on it, we can use it in conjunction with this upload appliance. So we don't need to make another server. So there's a huge savings there. And again, these figures are worst case, and I don't think we're gonna be near there. So I'm hoping if we decide to pay in full, WatchGuard or Motorola will come down a little bit as well.
But my recommendation would be to pay it in full. I did an implied interest rate calculation on the lease payments, and that cost of fund is much higher than what our town funds are, which is typical. So I believe our recommendation would be to optimize the cost and make it lower as possible and doing the lump sum payment.
So
Just-
do they come back to us if the lower dollar amount? How does that money change? The dollar amount,
I think it's
right? I'm sorry. Yeah, I think-
Well, I can't promise you that it'll change, but in my experience with these companies, when they're looking at what they used to do is, hey, you want a car camera? It's $5 grand. Go put it in your car. Then they would charge you if you wanted to store that data, or you would be on your own to store it yourself, which is what we elected to do. Now what they're doing is they're charging you a per device per month fee that includes the device, the storage of the data, and also a warranty associated with that product. So for the body cameras, it's $50 a month per camera. So do the math on 45 cameras per month for 5 years. That's where we're at there, in addition to some additional hardware that we need to charge the batteries, to upload the devices, to program them, things like that. However, this isn't a one-time cost. And I think that's, in 5 years, we're going to be back here looking at, do we want to stay with Motorola? Is there something better out on the market? Or if we decide to continue with them, it's going to be again at $50, well, whatever the price is in 5 years, per device, per officer. So just understand that. We do get a warranty, like I said, with the product. It is a 5-year agreement that we're entering in. We can cancel it at any time. The other thing that we get is 3 years into this 5-year contract, we get what they call a refresh. We'll get all new body cameras in 3 years. And then when this contract expires in 5 years and we're say, yes, great, we'll continue with WatchGuard, we again get new cameras. So we'll get new cameras now, new cameras in 3 years. And if we decide to stay with them in 2 years after that, we'll get new cameras again.
You can tell us the 174 is the most.
So Mike, was to answer Nick's question. So if you approve the 188,096 tonight and WatchGuard gets negotiated down to 175, that 13,000 will just sit in capital non-recurring, and then at some point we'll sweep it to another project.
Even though the motion was made, we're just gonna.
Yeah, so that's not to exceed.
Okay.
So the maximum amount
I
is
got you.
188,096.
Right.
And we'll try to get it as low as possible.
Right. And in my experience, you go back to these companies and say, hey, listen, we're not going to pay you in 5 years, we're going to pay you in a lump sum. They're usually pretty good about it. So we'll see.
Brian, were you gonna make a motion?
I made the motion, it was seconded.
I make a motion to move the question. I think that's.
Boy, hostile, wasn't he? Hostile.
It's not hostile, let's just.
It seemed hostile.
We're gonna vote yes, so let's move the question.
No, all right, Mike had me at hello, I got you.
Yeah.
All right. Before we move the
Motion to move the question.
motion to move the question officially, can we say that our discussion is done?
Yeah.
I have a question.
Motion instead of,
Yes.
All right. Mr. Palmer has a question.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Of this $188,000, how much of it is one-time cost versus annual cost?
So one-time cost for equipment. And again, when you're dealing with electronic equipment, nothing's a one-time cost. Everything, stuff changes, and over years, you're going to have to upgrade stuff to be in compliance with whatever new security mandates there are, hardware, everything changes with electronics. As soon as you buy something electronic, it's outdated in 3 months. The direct purchase items, there's $11,000 of that money that is stationary hardware. It would be like docking stations, batteries. There is a piece of equipment right now that needs to be reinstalled. We need to buy a new piece of equipment that goes into each and every one of the cars that is compatible with the actual body camera. So you take the body camera off and you'll put it in the cradle inside the car, and they will sync up, and they will also they'll talk to each other, and it's part of the upload procedure as well as charging the battery. So that we need a new piece of equipment to match that, and that comes in just under $3,000. So about, like I said, about $11,000 is equipment that we're not paying monthly fees on, if that makes sense.
Right. So how much are we adding to our annual budget is the real question in terms of,
So
there's an initial cost, then there's an annual cost.
Well,
The cameras are what, $49?
well, the initial cost of $149,000, 241 is for the cameras, for the software, for the storage for the next 5 years.
Okay.
After that, then yes, we would be at the whim of what the prices are at the time in 5 years from now.
I'm concerned over year 2, year 3, year 4?
But there is no year 2, 3, or 4. If we pay up front right now, there is no cost in year
No,
2. 3,
no
4.
monthly costs in addition to this.
No, there's not. They give you payment options. We could choose to pay.
Yeah, no, that's not the
Yeah.
question. It's just.
No, there's no additional monthly fees.
So I just want to add though, Mr. Palmer, there is for a little confusion, for our current cameras that we already have, our car cameras, we do pay a yearly maintenance fee so that they stay under warranty. That's already in our capital budget and that will continue.
Okay.
So it's because we're coming in now and doing it a little bit different and the company's doing it different than when we bought the body cameras, like Lieutenant Libertini said, we bought them up front for one price, kept them. Now it's more of a lease type thing that they're making us do. So a little confusing, but this money here will cover us for 5 years for what we're buying now, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
And as I always explain, it may seem like a lease, but it is not. We own the equipment. Just
Okay.
so-
Thank you.
I just want to
Thank you.
say it's a fabulous idea. Yay, you police. Yay, go. I'm voting yes.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Nay? Yes. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I just have to ask,
No.
did anybody second Brian's motion to move the question?
We never seconded it and so it got dropped.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, next item up is the Bethel Fire Department bottles and air packs.
Both fire departments need some materials. These are things that wear out and must be replaced for safety and by law. The first one up is Bethel Fire Department. Bottle SCBA self-contained breathing apparatus bottles and air packs. You have some materials in your packet on that. $12,948 for bottles, $98,700 for the air packs, 12 of each. This was vetted by the Fire Commission on August 11th. It appears in their minutes and then approved and forwarded to you by the Board of Selectmen it appears in their minutes on August 17th. So we are requesting $111,648 from capital non-recurring to support this, and this was anticipated in the budget.
Make a motion to approve $111,648 for Bethel Fire Department purchase the SBA bottles and air.
I would second that.
Any discussion?
I want to thank Chief McCollum and Chief Baker for being here in case there's any questions. Thank you for your support.
All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Okay.
And then next, Stony Hill Fire Department, don't need the air packs on this go around, but the carbon fiber bottles, they were requesting $14,366. Again, that was vetted by the Fire Commission and approved and by the Board of Selectmen.
I make a motion to approve $14,366 for the 11 Scott carbon fiber air cylinders for Stony Hill Fire.
Second.
Discussion. I have a question. Why, I'm just curious, Chief Baker, why are these 1306 each? The other bottles are 1,079.
Because the bottles that we purchase are a larger size bottle. We go with a 45-minute bottle, but the fire department has a 30-minute bottle.
That's really the only difference.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Chief Baker, I was talking to Chief McCollum, and he talked about after a few years, you can kind of get them recertified or updated. Do you normally do that on a yearly?
Yeah, you're required every 5 years to get them what's called hydrostatically tested, which means they have to take the valve off, look inside the bottle, and do a inspection. And that's mandated by DOT standard. Once the bottle reaches a 15-year max life, then you have to throw it away and replace it.
But the air pack, does that extend its life if you're doing that every 5 years?
No, that's totally separate. It has nothing to do with the pack.
Okay, how do you extend on that? And do you do that? You know,
The life of the pack?
the air pack.
The life of the air pack is just basic maintenance, inspection, minor repairs as needed. There's nothing, it has nothing to do with the bottles.
Chief McCollum, can you explain what you did?
Yeah, there's actually, the life of the air packs are extended. Per NFPA, anytime they come out with a new regulation for the air packs, we're notified and you can do an upgrade. Nick and I had spoken the other day, I explained this to Nick that if that were to happen, I would take that to the fire commission to see if the fire commission wanted to invest that money in those particular air packs. You're probably talking a couple $1,000 each time you do that. You can upgrade them every 5 years and keep them in service and serviceable by doing that. But every year, they're all inspected, as Chief Baker said. Everything's inspected, everything's what we call flow tested to make sure they're working properly. So
But I'm just talking about extending life, Chief.
Right.
Is he,
You
is
can
it
extend
different
the
air
life.
packs or something, or?
No, they're all the same, basic. It's per the National Fire Protection Association. And when they come out with a new standard, which the boards are all, manufacturers are all on the boards, it's none of us normal people.
They're making the, yeah. Sounds like Congress.
They're doing what they think is safe for us, and they're also doing things that may help them do some things. And we have to abide by that, or else, you're not up to the standard.
Is there any advantage or cost savings by standardizing to the same across both fire departments at 30-minute versus 45-minute?
I think that's really personal preference for every department. We like the 30-minute bottles downtown. They're a smaller profile in the back. It's a little less cumbersome. It's a lot of work. You go in a fire, you're wearing an air pack, it's a lot of work. We had an incident today that was outside where we had firefighters in full gear with air packs on. Let me tell you, they were beat at the end of their evolutions. They were beat. That's why we called an extra help just to make sure that nobody got overheated. We had agencies from, both here in Bethel, and we had agencies from the city of Danbury, and we had Reading in here helping out. The water department in Danbury came over to help. So, pull manhole covers and help us. So, the air packs are important, and it's just like I said, it's just a personal preference. A lot of departments use different size bottles.
Any more discussion or questions? All right, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Comptroller's report. Okay. This is a report for August 31st of this fiscal year, 22, second month into the year. As far as revenue is concerned, we've already received 22,944 of the 81,854. So we'll move it along on that. Just to give you an update on the taxes, we're roughly at 31% at this point. Most of that came in the first month because this month, August, is not a collection month. But some other items that are interesting, penalties and interest at this point, we budgeted 202,000 and we're at 102 already, 50% of that budgeted item. I think I mentioned this the last time, the Kermer revenue share, we had budgeted 30,000. We did receive a check from the insurance company for 76,908. Other major items, conveyance taxes, budget at 305 and we're at 88,000 already. Building and zoning permits, 350 was budgeted and we're at 118. So that's 33.62 roughly % collection. We're doing really fine with the revenue side. When you go to the expenses, there's really nothing out of whack when you take 212 and then multiply it out by 12 months. Something like probate court, which is normally, you can see it there at a negative 7408. We share that with the other 3 towns, but the major item in there, the 13,000 that we spent already this year, is for a security glass around the desk that as you approach the court, they're secure. That kind of skews it. If you did it, on the analysis for the 12 months, it would skew the number. Town insurance, we pay
insurance up front, so that would look a little out of whack, but we're fine because we budgeted what we have to pay and we're gonna be on the mark with that. Highway is a little bit high right now, but most of the work is done for the road construction at this time of year, so they're gonna slow down once the winter comes. So they have other expenses for plowing if there's a lot of snow and sand and ice, salt, but the road construction will drop off. Everything else is pretty much in line at this point. I don't see any major issues with the expenses either. So that's pretty much on the report. I have a couple other things I want to mention, but anybody have any questions on the report?
I do. Could you just explain again about the probate? What did you say? Plexiglass or?
This is actually a security glass. It's bulletproof. It's very similar to the glass that's used it is in the tax collector's office. So the clerks and the judge are protected from anybody trying to get in. It's a locked door as you walk in, rather than just a little half a wooden door where somebody could potentially jump over.
I'm just curious of how that came up as a thing. Like, was that just done recently or?
Yeah, it was done July, August timeframe.
So it's not a COVID thing. It's a security thing.
Security, it's security.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
I would love to make a motion of Bob's last report as presented tonight.
Thank you.
And it's truly, Bob, you've been a friend and I appreciate what you did for the town.
Thank you. Thank you.
Second,
I'll second.
all those in favor of the motion on the floor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
So there was just one other thing. We've always talked about the police vehicles, being in the budget and moving them to capital and recurring. And Brad and I were talking, and I think Matt and I have had a conversation on that. And certainly the chief and the chairman of the police commission. I think it's something for you to consider in the future. We can easily set up an account in Munis to fund this. But the funding of the vehicles, when we have a surplus at the end of the fiscal year, maybe take a certain amount of money, 20 or 25,000, and apply it to that account to be used in the future to purchase a car. You may not be able to, buy a full car the first year, but and we can't touch the revenue right now that we allocated for the outside work. That's where it would be coming from. But next year, rather than book $100,000, which is in the budget, maybe you do 75, and that difference of 25 goes into the account as well. So after basically a year, when you're at this point next year, you may have enough money in there to fund at least one car. And rolling forward, by bringing down the budgeted amount to 50, 45, 25, and maybe taking some of the surplus that you do at the transfer adjustments at the end of the year, November to December timeframe, apply some of that money to it, and you might have, a decent amount of money to buy 2 or 3 cars, and then you don't have to put it in the budget.
Are you talking about dirt job revenue? Is that what you meant?
The outside revenue.
When you say outside, you're talking about dirt jobs,
Yeah,
the money, the fees that contractors pay.
but right now we budgeted as revenue as part of the mill rate calculation. So we can't take 20 out of that at this point because then we're going to skew that number. But you can certainly take money from the surplus from June 30th of this year and say, okay, let's do 20 or 25 and apply it to this account. It's something I think, might be a good consideration going forward and would help the budget in the long run too, because you're actually reducing the cost that's going into the budget.
Yeah, so just to let the board know, so it's not audited yet, but 2021, the police department brought in $170,000 for their cars for the outside work that they did.
In 1 year?
In 1 year. It's cash basis, so some of it could have been from the prior year. And we budgeted 100,000. So in theory, what you could do is once you hit your budget number, anything in excess that they collect could go to this police equipment fund that now you're buying cars out of that. And eventually you would lower your mill rate in turn because you are not budgeting for police cars.
With that 170 figure?
Yeah.
You still have fuel, maintenance, tires. I mean, so
Correct.
it's not 170.
Correct, yeah. But that's on a revenue side, when you're looking at it from an accounting standpoint,
I got
he
What it
exceeded
takes.
the revenue by $70,000.
it.
And the prior year was 53,000.
I think this is something for next year, but I do have one question I want to ask. What's the trend, Brad? Are we just underestimating revenue?
In 2019, they collected 98,000. So if you go back to 2018, it was 93, 17 it was 104, 16 was 84. So when we looked at it at budget time, we didn't have the 170 number because we're back in January, February. So the 153 could have been outlier.
What did we budget in those prior years?
We budgeted 100,000 as long as I've been here.
Bob, the chairman of the police commission is here. Maybe you can tell us why it went up 70,000 in 1 year?
Can I just say, that's all based on the jobs that come in. So some years,
It was just much busier years.
right, some years CLMP's not doing anything, right? This year Lewis Tree is trimming trees throughout the area. So like on our department, they're hiring 2 officers every day. And then we have a state project where they're hiring 2 more. So we have 4 or 5 cruisers out a day that we're billing at $24 an hour. So it's really, it's just the volume of work. You never really know. You're at the whim of the utility companies and, you know, that apartment building. They may need police officers to help bring traffic in and out. You just never know. So we have a guesstimate, but you can never give a set number saying you're guaranteed this, because some years you might get nothing. You know, go back to 2007 when the economy tanked from nothing was going on, you know, it was pretty dry. So you just can't predict that.
And
We got a lot of items.
I have a point of order, Chairman, Mr. Chairman.
Police calculate some other things, so. Okay, I'm sorry, somebody say something?
Cynthia.
I was just going to have a point of order because we're veering off the agenda, something that could be an agenda item.
I take your point. It's under the comptroller's report, but if you want to bring that point up, that's fine. Thank you. Robert, anything else?
The only thing I want to thank everybody for being friends, working very cordially with me. I mean, we've had a good time the last number of years, not only this board, but all the Board of Finances that I've worked with. I enjoyed working for the town. It was a great experience. It's, with the treasurership, it's 21 years, so it's a long time. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I might impose upon you, both my privilege as ex officio. I have 2 announcements to make. One of them is that in addition to Bob's retirement, which is coming up this
You're
Friday.
retiring?
No.
Oh, you're gonna take.
Don't get
I see,
excited.
I'm sorry. Was that out loud?
Yes, that was allowed. Mr. Gordon too. No, I want to let you know, in case you hadn't heard, that our excellent and long-serving tax collector, Ann Scapegoat, is retiring. We have a little bit more time with Ann. She's going to be with us until the end of October. I think October 22nd will be her last day. And at the last Board of Selectmen meeting, the Board of Selectmen appointed Paula Usher to step up to Ann's position with Ann's very strong endorsement. Paula is fully certified, has worked for many years for Ann. As I said to Ann, or I said to Paula, wishing her well, said you've had the best mentor in the world, so I think she's going to do an excellent job. To backfill Paula, we will move up Erin Scott, who has been our senior tax clerk for many years now. She does an excellent job as well. She's ready to take on that new responsibility. So that's number 1. So number 2 is I just want to let everybody know how much I appreciate working with Bob these past 12 years. We are in a very, very good place. Thanks to you, thanks to the boards that came before you, and a lot of hard work by Bob. Our first years were not easy. When I assumed office in December of 2009, our longtime controller had very tragically had a relapse of his cancer. He was only able to work a part-time day, and he passed away in April of 2010. And Bob was recommended, the Board of Selectmen wanted Bob anyway, but the Board of Finance agreed and recommended that we bring on Bob. I want to tell you, Bob's first couple of years were not easy. We inherited 2 massive lawsuits from the Bethel High School renovation. One of them involved billing irregularities, which turned out to be one that we had to settle. But there were almost no records in Bob's office, and that was not the fault of Mr. Carina. There were other things going on, miscommunications between the building committee, the builders, the construction manager. There were changes in the building committee. Bob had to pretty much do a forensic search of that office to put together things and try to find out where we were. And I don't think anybody who was not an auditor with the IRS could have done that. I mean, it could have buried an individual who was not well prepared for that. We had a similar problem with the Public Utilities Commission. One of the things that Bob and I discovered together, I should say Bob discovered and informed me, one of the things you don't want to hear from your new comptroller is, Mr. Selectman, you have a problem. Because it was bad. This was when it was revealed that the utility department was 2.9 million in the hole and losing about $100,000 a year between water and sewer. And we had no capital plan in place. And again, not the fault of the previous owner of the comptroller's position. It goes back 20, 30 years. So Bob and I had to work together on that, bring things that we had to go to the Board of Finance, the Board of Selectmen, to the Public Utilities Commission. There was a tremendous amount of work to be done to just get out of the hole and get on an even keel before we could really start looking at trying to move the town forward with like trying to repair roads. And we had leaking school roofs at that time. We had parents who said, and then keep in mind, this was at the depth of the Great Recession, and we had people saying, I am tired of my kids coming home and telling me that they have to run around putting out buckets in the gymnasium at school because the roofs leak so badly. So before we could even start moving the town forward, we had to plug the holes, no pun intended, and there were a lot of them. So Bob has been a tremendous partner in that. It's really hard to overstate how much you've done for us. So I want to thank you personally.
Thank you. Absolutely. It was a great partnership.
Yeah, we took classes together too. CCM offers classes
That's
in
right.
municipal budgeting. And even with his background in IRS and mine in corporate, I think both of us walked out there and went, holy cow.
It's totally
We got a
different.
lot to do.
Totally different.
It's totally different. So Bob, publicly, thank you for
Thank
everything
you.
you've done.
Thank you.
That's it. That's my report.
Okay.
All right, anything else or just a motion to adjourn?
Robert wants to make a motion, I know it.
Move to adjourn.
Nick, you gonna second it?
Second it.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned. Good night, thank you.
It was nice to come
Good
in
night.
person. Thank you.
All right.